rise of a new potential drug to treat specifically food allergy reactions. So in the paper is Bakelin induces CD4 plus FOXP3 T cells and enhances intestinal barrier function in a mouse model of food allergy. That's a mouthful. So in simpler terms, it's Bakelin alleviates food allergy symptoms and increases the integrity of tight junctions. So first of all, food allergies or food allergy reaction specifically is a response from the immune system to a foreign antigen or allergy. Now, food allergies, their severity varies. Mild ones only have symptoms like rashes, vomiting, just itchiness in the throat. But in the most severe cases, they have what's called anaphylactic shock, which basically is when your throat inflames and, if not treated immediately, can lead to suffocation. Now, the reason this paper is focused specifically on food allergies is that recently there's been a huge increase in food allergies across the world. From 1997 to 2011 alone, there's been approximately a 50% increase. That means 8% of children all over the world and 2% of adults all over the world. So, quickly before we go through the rest of the presentation, some words to know. Bakelin, the drug that's being is a flavone that acts as an anti-inflammatory agent. Ovalbumin is an allergic reaction inducer. It's what causes the allergic reaction in the mouse models being observed today. Treg cells are immunosuppressive cells that downregulate and suppress the proliferation of T cells. IgE antibodies are antibodies made by the immune system to attack allergens. They're what induce the allergic reaction. And tight junctions are connections between two cells whose membranes form a selective, permeable barrier. Any questions about any of these terms? Dr. Kirker?
Would you just give us the audience a really brief explanation of what T cells are?
Yes, so T cells are cells made by the immune system that specifically attack foreign antigens, so anything that they see that's harmful to the body. Now, allergens aren't necessarily harmful to the body, but your own body, depending on what you're allergic to, treats what you're allergic to as a threat. So that's why we use T cells specifically in the immune system. Any other questions? Cool. All right. So how does an allergic reaction work? So let's say that you're allergic to nuts, a really common food allergy. Say you eat these nuts for some reason. It permeates what's called your intestinal barrier function. It's like your first shield in your intestines against food allergies. When your allergen permeates the intestinal barrier, it's presented to CD4 cells. These CD4 see that it's an allergen and differentiate themselves into T helper 2 cells. These T helper 2 cells in turn induce IgE antibodies, and these IgE antibodies are what cause the allergic reaction symptoms. Any questions on how allergic reaction works? Okay. So what they first did is that they wanted to test that Bakelin actually alleviates the symptoms of food reaction. So what they did here is that they used ovalbumin to induce something similar to food allergic reaction in mice. And what they tested here is their anaphylactic shock. So they gave the mice 60 minutes after the initial allergic reaction a certain amount of Bakelin. And what you can see here is that with the SARS, the PRISM one is the Bakelin. And as you can see here, compared to the sham group, which is just the group that they use to compare as a control, it's significantly less of a reaction. And this is good because Bakelin is supposed to alleviate food allergy symptoms, and anaphylactic shock being the most deadly of them all. If it's able to make such a difference in score, that way you know that it's actually working. Any questions? Dexamethasone is a really strong anti-inflammatory agent, and it's used also as a control. So it was administered at 0 minutes and 30 minutes, so that there was no reaction at all. But the reason it itself is not actually allergy medicine is because it has really bad side effects. It's known to actually cause muscle loss and something similar to it, so it wouldn't be suggested as an actual medicine.
Wallace, would you explain what's the difference between naive and sham?
Yeah, so sham group was actually not given anything to test if the symptoms would go down, but the naive group, they were given steps that are supposed to mimic as if they got treatment, but they actually didn't get the very important step that would actually alleviate the symptoms. Any further?
So is naive a placebo? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Any further questions? So next, they try to figure out what was the mechanism behind Bakelin. And what they use is, this is a method called flow cytometry, where they suspend cells in a liquid and pass them through a laser. And what the laser does, it counts the number of specific cells in the whole cell body. So in this case, they suspended CD4 cells, and they tested for what's called FOXP3 differentiation, which means that the specific CD4 FOXP3 cells become immunosuppressive cells. So as you can see here, the very first square is the control group. The rest of the squares are different doses of Bakelin. It goes 1, 5, 10, 20. And what you can see here is that in a dose-dependent manner, the more Bakelin, the more immunosuppressive cells that become used. Any questions?
Is that what the numbers signify when we go into each of the boxes from 1 to 4, 6?
Actually, no. I tried to look up what these numbers mean, but for some reason my paper didn't go into it. And one more thing, the blue is the amount of CD4 cells that didn't get induced into immunosuppressive cells, and the green is the actual immunosuppressive cells themselves. Any other questions? So once they figured out the mechanism behind Bakelin, they wanted to figure out if Bakelin had the potential to make your body stronger against future allergic reactions. So what they did was they tested Bakelin to see if it induced what's called tight junction proteins. And tight junction proteins are what makes your intestinal barrier function stronger. So what they did here is that they incubated tight junctions inside of Bakelin at different doses. And what they discovered is that the more Bakelin, the more tight junction protein expression.
Can you remind us what tight junctions are?
Yes, so tight junctions, I can actually go back all the way here. Tight junctions are connections between two cells whose membranes form a selective permeable barrier, the intestinal barrier itself. And what the intestinal barrier is actually a selective shield where it only allows in certain things into your body, like nutrients, electrolytes, water, and it's supposed to be your first line of defense against anything that finds threatening. Okay. Any questions about that? No? Okay. So what does this all mean? What this means is that Bakelin counteracts allergic reactions by inducing immunosuppressive cells. And what it also means is that it has the power to strengthen your intestinal barrier function by expressing tight junction proteins in a dose-dependent manner. This is really important because when you realize that Bakelin has the potential to make your food allergy reactions less harmful to you over time, you will realize that when you eat something by accident a second time, your reaction will be less harmful. You won't have that initial immediate reaction to when you have an anaphylactic shock, for example. You won't need to be as immediate with your response to it. So future implications. Right now, the current treatment for food allergy reactions is EpiPens. The minute you have an allergic reaction or a severe one, you need to use EpiPen immediately. And that usually needs to be followed up by a trip to the hospital where if the initial shot of epinephrine doesn't work, they usually use additional steroids to help further reduce the symptoms themselves. Now, what's also being inferred at the end of my paper, I didn't go too much into it, is that they said it has the potential to prevent food allergies altogether. And when I say that is, if you use Bakelin early on when you realize that you have food allergies, the more Bakelin you have as you go along future in life, the less severe your symptoms will be if you ever do have that reaction.
What's the source of it?
The source, so Bakelin actually is an herb. It comes from a flower that's, I believe, found, from what I know, in South Korea. So it's actually a herb that you can find in like everyday life. It's not something that was manufactured in a lab. Any questions?
Does Bakelin need to be injected or like an EpiPen, or does it need to be?
It needs to be, I believe, what they said, not injected like an EpiPen, but it can be like orally, so like a pill, or maybe liquid. Any other questions?
So sorry, just to clarify, Bakelin isn't like analogous to an EpiPen because you don't like take it when you have an allergic reaction. You take it to prevent future allergic reactions,
Yes.
right? Okay, I see.
Any other questions? Thank you. That was my presentation. Any further questions about Bakelin or just food allergies in general?
So because this drug like increases the intestinal wall, could there be side effects that are negative, like not enough nutrients being passed in the body?
So no, what they realized in the paper is that was a concern that they had. They realized that since the intestinal barrier function already has a mechanism where it knows what it's supposed to have go through it, making it stronger with Bakelin won't have any negative side effects.
Piggybacking on Jolene's question, what about increasing the immunosuppressant cells for a potentially long period of time? Did you mention that as a potential health?
They did not mention that, but I can see the concern if you have too many immunosuppressive cells in your body, when you actually do have something besides a food allergy to combat in your system, it could have negative side effects if your actual immune cells or the TFR2 cells aren't doing their job.
Because Bakelin comes from a common herb, would it be less expensive than vitamin EpiPen, which is like $800?
Yes, actually, it would be less expensive because it actually is easier to make Bakelin than it is to manufacture an EpiPen. Any questions? All right. Thank you.